Hello, this is Sean Dern. In episode 1 of my series, you heard from several people who were at or were organizing after the violent Montreal police raid on Sex Garage in July of 1990. You heard about the bravery and the courage of queer activists who didn't back down. But what you didn't hear, though, was what happened after the news crews and cameras packed up and what happened to the people who were arrested. Linda Dawn Hammond, who saved the day with her photos of the police brutality that night, was arrested at the subsequent daytime protest, and she told me she was one of the last 2 people to be released by Montreal police that time, and they apparently had it out for her too.
We were there for hours and hours and hours, and they had mics on listening to us, what we were saying. Now, at one point, they moved me from that cell to another cell, and yet they weren't releasing me, and they had taken me to be processed. And they said things to me while I was being processed, like, this is when I heard the media star thing, actually. First of all, they said to behind my back in French, I bet she has a big hole, which is really kind of rude. And anyway, that was one thing that was said, which is, nobody needs to hear that. And then this guy came in my face and he said to me, "You're the media star. You said too much. Next time we see your face, you're going to be arrested immediately. You don't have to do anything. We just have to see your face. And you're going to be in jail for days, maybe a week, maybe longer." And he was like panting almost. And he was saying, "So what do you think about that, huh? What do you think about that?" And so, and I said, "Well, I don't know what's going on out." And he asked me what was going on with the protest. And I said, "Well, how would I know? I'm in here." Like, how do I know what's going on with the protest right now? Anyway, so that was one of the threats.
How did you get out? Do you have a criminal record for this?
No, I don't think so, because we got shafted by our lawyers. We had 3 criminal and 3 municipal charges laid against us, and they made an agreement with the lawyers that they would drop the criminal charges if we would plead guilty to all the municipal and basically say that we would never go after them in the future. And I didn't want to do it, and I was one of the last holdouts. But in the end, they said to me, the cops, or not the cops, it was almost like cops. This one lawyer said to me right at the courthouse when I was going to plead not guilty. And he said there were only 3 of us left that weren't going to plead guilty. And they wouldn't tell me who the other 2 were, so I couldn't get hold of them to be able to confer, right? And they said, "Are you still planning on pleading not guilty?" And I said, "Yes, why?" And he said, "If you go in there and you plead not guilty, I'm dropping you right then and there as a client." And he said this to me just before I walked in. And he said, "You realize that out of, 50 of us, 49 of us, 46 of you have pleaded guilty to the same thing you're planning on going in there and pleading guilty to? Oh, not guilty to?" That's what he said to me. The lawyer, right?
Wow. Who gave you these lawyers? Where did these lawyers come from?
Well, they were lawyers that were found for us, yeah, because they. And I had a different lawyer originally, and then I got switched to this one because my lawyer almost got me arrested. I got. Well, that's a long story too, but I mean, you remember what I said, that they had said they were going to arrest me and I was going to be in jail for days, maybe a week, maybe longer.
Yeah, they said they saw you again.
Well, a week and a half after that, my lawyer, he was in a wheelchair, and he looked like Ironside, and he had phoned me up and said, "Look, I know you're short on cash." Do you want to do a job for me? I need you to photograph something for me at Rockland Shopping Mall. And so I said, I guess so. So went with him to Rockland Shopping Mall and these 2 other guys, and did some photographs of some underground parking lots. And while we were in there, he disappeared, and with these 2 guys, and they were my ride. And so I was wondering where they were, and we'd been followed around by some security guard who had been talking on walkie-talkies about the guy in the wheelchair, and they didn't realize I was with them, right? So when, oh God, this was something. Anyway, I was standing there, and I couldn't find my lawyer, and I thought, how do you lose a guy in a wheelchair? So I went up to this security guard, and I said to him, "Excuse me, have you seen the man in the wheelchair?" And they went, and somebody yelled behind me, "There she is, grab her, arrest her, handcuff her." And I got grabbed, handcuffed behind my back. And there was a big cop standing there, and he said, "You're under arrest." And I said, "For what?" He said, "Conspiracy." And I said, "Conspiracy to do what?" He said, conspiracy to commit armed robbery. So I got arrested, supposedly, in Rockland Shopping Mall a week and a half after, and being told that I was being charged with armed robbery, you know?
And what happened with all that? This is obviously related to the other thing. And
I never even told anyone about it at the time because it was just so absurd, right? And I figured they were out of their minds, you know, like to do this, right? So they hauled me back to the main station, right? And the guy who arrested me, this was interesting. The cop who arrested me was looking through his computer saying, I can't find it. I can't. Oh, he said, have you ever been arrested before? And they knew it was a setup. And I said, oh, come on, you know, what do you know? And he said, well, I can't find it. And I said, it's probably not in there yet. And then he turned around and he looked at me and he said, oh, wait a minute. I recognize you. You're the media star. And, you know, I'm in a, right?
So what happened then with this case? I've never heard of this. Like, did they pursue it?
Well, there was no, they didn't. But the thing is that he said, you know, you're the media star. And, you know, which is the term they used when they said they were going to arrest me again and all that in the cop station at Station 25, right? And you'll love this part. This is interesting because you were saying, why did they do it, right? This is how I found out why they did it, right? He said to me, first of all, he told me he was there. I was there. And he was all proud of himself, right? So I said, what do you mean
Sex
you were
Garage
there?
Or the daytime
This
thing?
is why I asked. I said, you mean the protest? And he went, no. Sex Garage, the party. I said, you were one of the 32 cops that were beating us at the party? And here he is picking me up in Rockland Shopping Mall and taking me to the main station? And I said to him, what station are you from? And he said, Laval. I went, Laval? I mean, you know, and then, so he started trying to ask me about Sex Garage. And I said, so I started asking him because I said, I want to know. I said, why did you beat us? Why did you, you know, we were trying to leave. You wouldn't let us get to our cars. And he said something about, well, you know, when you're in a like an army kind of thing, right? You have to protect your rear. So that's why they weren't letting us behind. So he said, specific, you have to protect your rear. I thought this was funny. And then he also added, some of your guys showed their asses to us. I don't think he realized, like, you put the two together. And it's actually almost kind of funny, you know, that he did not realize what he was saying, right? Do you know what I mean?
Unbelievable. So they were just so they just arrested you at this point then to harass you further and to just prove that they could?
Did. Yeah, and it turned out they arrested my lawyer, and they had a special vehicle waiting at Rockland Shopping Mall to take him away in his wheelchair, so which means that we were set up because that was already there in place.
Did you pursue anything with them? Did you try to?
No.
Wow.
No, because I thought they were going to kill me. I thought they were insane.
Linda said she felt so threatened by Montreal police after this incident that she had to briefly leave the city to stay with family in Toronto before returning to Montreal sometime later. The cover art for this episode is a photo taken by Linda that night at Sex Garage on her trusty pre-digital Nikon. She told me it's one of her favorite photos of that night, but joked it often gets cropped badly when it's used by people. Check out the deranged stare from the police officer on the left-hand side. He's looking right at Linda and at her camera, holding his billy club like he wants to use it on her. He usually gets cropped out of this photo, but Linda says that's the reason that she took the photo in the first place. Thank you for listening. This Queer Legends Quickie is a Secret Agents production, written, researched, recorded, and produced by me, Sean Dern. The executive producer is Ian Capstick. Queer Legends, an oral history podcast, is now featured on Apple Podcast 2022 Pride Celebration and on Player FM. You can also catch it on Spotify and wherever you go for great storytelling.